Okay, everyone, good morning. Shalom Aleichem. Can you, just 1 second. Can anyone hear me? Okay, you can hear me. Baruch Hashem. Give me 1 more minute and we'll be starting. Actually, maybe we'll sing a good nigun while we're waiting. Noi v'hareinu Hashem Elokeinu b'necham ha'siyaynecha u'b'vinyan Yerushalayim Yerushalayim yirkochecha v'hareinu Hashem Elokeinu b'nechamas tziyon v'voinecha u'b'vinyan Yerushalayim Yerushalayim yirkochecha ki atahu ba'yeshuot Ba'yeshuot u'ba'nechamot ki atahu ba'yeshuot Ba'yeshuot u'ba'nechamot v'hareinu Hashem Elokeinu b'nechamas tziyon v'nilecha u'b'binyan Yerushalayim Yerushalayim yirkochecha ki atahu ba'yeshuot u'ba'nechamot la 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 bam 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 bim bam bim dai 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 ay la dai da di ay dai da la di da di di ah la di da dai dai ay ya 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 da da la 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 di da dam ay da di da dam ay da di ay da di dai la 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 li ay la la di da di ay la da di da ay la da di da ya dam la da di da dai ay la da di da dam ay 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 Chodesh Tov. Good morning, everybody. Chodesh Tov. It's a weird thing to say in Rosh Chodesh Av to say Chodesh Tov, but I heard a word from the Lubliner. It says Mishenichnas Av Mima'atin Besimcha. So that usually means that when Av comes in, you have less simcha. But leave it to a Hasidic Rebbe to take these words and give us life. And he said, Mishenichnas Av, when Av comes in, Mima'atin, you make yourself a little bit smaller. You humble yourself. But how do you do that? Besimcha. So it's a great time. Look, if there was ever a time to just like lihitkabetz pnima and to go a little bit smaller into yourself, then the forces of nature and misradei habriut have been forcing us to definitely mima'atin. As you can see by my dear friend Naftali's background, there is a way to do this besimcha. So therefore, we should keep the smiles on, keep the simcha. Just mima'atin, just shtuahate, quiet, everything's going to be okay. So we're finishing today, Bezrat Hashem, this long ma'amar from Rav Erez Moshe Doron, speaking about the blissful beauty of Yerushalayim. This piece has really touched my heart. this piece has described for us in a very simple way of visualization how beautiful Yerushalayim, Kodesh, once was. And I know that we're supposed to say still is, but and I'm sure it still is, but when there's so much hatred in the streets and crazy rallies and Afghanot and so much machlokas. You know what I wish? I wish that all those that were so not into machlokas would go out and rally, as hard as those that are into machlokas as well. Wouldn't that be amazing? Like if we went out to the streets and rallied and just grabbed people and saying, "You have to know that I love you," or "Please take this challah for Shabbos," something like that. I think we'd have a chance to beat this plague, which is much worse than COVID and anything else. When we began discussing about how beautiful Yerushalayim was, how clean it was, how much ahavat achim there was, and everyone that slept in Yerushalayim always found a place, but specifically we were speaking about something that you and I wish we had. What do we wish we had more than anything? And I know each of you can relate to this. We wish we had a korban tamid that every day would atone for whatever we did last night, and a korban tamid of ben arbaim that would atone for whatever happened during the day. And we discussed that was the reality that Am Yisrael was living in, that they were in a constant state of a clean slate, constantly, because of the korban tamid. Can you imagine that type of reality? Half our days are spent on guilt. Half our days are spent on wondering, does God really like me or not? It's actually in this parsha when the Meraglim, and Moshe Rabbeinu describes the Meraglim's sin. So the words are B'sinat Hashem otanu, that God hated us and therefore he brought us into the desert, and then is going to take us to a country, to a land that's too hard to conquer. These assumptions about what God thinks about us. But when we had a korban tamid shel shachar and shel ben arbaim, do you know how beautiful you become when you don't have, when that worry and that guilt is out of you? Do you know how ugly we become when we're filled with guilt? So real beauty, we don't even know if it would hit us over the head, what it would look like, until there's a Beis Hamikdash. But what a world that is. However, it's beautiful to learn this stuff dafka today, because today, Rosh Chodesh Musaf v'Rashei Chodeshim L'Amcha Natata Zman Kapara Lechol Toldotam. Now it's a Zman Kapara. Rosh Rabbi Nachman also says it's a beginning, if you would like to call it a clean in the month of Tammuz. Chodesh Av. Rashei Chodeshim L'Amcha Natata Zman Kapara Lechol Toldotam Biotam Akrivim Lefanecha Zivchei Ratzon Usterei Chatat Lechaper Ba'adam Mizbeach Chadash B'Tzion Tachin Ve'olat Rosh Chodesh Na'at. So just open up with a little bit of a prayer, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How much longer can we go with having to work on this game of assumptions of whether you forgive me or not? How much longer do I have to play of assumptions? How much longer do I have to assume that I'm doing something right and work on the guessing game? Please let us bring a Mizbeach Chadash B'Tzion Tachin. Please bring us a new, the ability to bring a korban anew in Yerushalayim, Yira Kodesh. And then we began discussing how confusing it is that when we started to come back to Eretz Yisrael, but not really understanding what we were coming back for. And while we come back to Eretz Yisrael, our eyes are still on foreign cultures. It's like, one of the questions is like, can you get Netflix in Eretz Yisrael? Like that's a question that some may have when it comes to contemplating Aliyah. Oh, you can get Netflix in it? Okay, so then VPN? Yeah. Oh, so maybe it can work. But how crazy it is to come to Eretz Yisrael, but really like looking back the way Zelo Alech, Zelo Zen. And also our emunah in a Redeemer put an end to our suffering. When you look at it in a very exiled manner, it seems to you that you're talking about something that's like a b'diavad. No, it's a lechatchila. Anyone that feels like they're in a state of benatayim, like we learned 2 days ago, like in the meanwhile, while we're here, it's like this, it's not really going anywhere. But what unifies us is the following. And this is how we ended last week. What unifies us is a hunger and thirst for something new. That's the achdus. The achdus isn't what we all believe in. The achdus that you and I have a little bit of a taste of is, at least for me, I connect most to people that are desperately hungry for something new. If you're okay with this, with shuls being the same, if you're okay with schools being the same, if you're okay with relationships being the same, if you're okay with God's revelation being the same, but I feel that as we're moving forward and forward towards the Yom Shekulo Shabbos, all the desperate people in the world are not embarrassed to express their desperate need for something new, mashu chadash. I'm not just talking about Naftali Bennett's mashu chadash matchil. That's mashu yashan meod matchil. All those slogans, we're so sick of those slogans, and we know that the Yeshua is not going to come from that. We don't know where it's going to come from, but we know that thirst and hunger unites. And Baruch Hashem, we have plenty of people that are very, very thirsty and that are very, very hungry. And that's where we're at right now. So, I'm sorry, the last thing that we learned last time was when we looked at the pasuk that Avram Avinu was promised, where it says, Ko yezaracha ke'afar ha'aretz u'kechochovei hashamayim. We tried to understand why was, when Avram Avinu was told about you and I, he was said, listen, your kinderlach, they're going to be like afar ha'aretz, like the dust of the land, and they're also going to be like the stars in the Shemayim. Question is, it's a little bit of a difference. Either I'm up there or I'm down here. So the Gemara in Megillah says, Umazu, this people, kshehem yordim, when they fall, yordim ad afar, they go down. It's not like, let me see if I can rebel against God and like flick a light on Shabbos. If you're going to fall, you're going to go the whole way, ad afar. But if you have a moment of hirhur tshuva, gewalt, ad kochavim, olim ad kochavim. And it explains why you and I sometimes go crazy with self-identity crisis, because we can't figure out, wait a second, am I this guy that's on fire for God? Or am I this guy that couldn't care less? Well, you're both. We're both. When we're shining, kochavim. And when we're in the lowest rut, it doesn't get any lower. Afar ha'aretz, it's the lowest in the world. Therefore, any way we look at it is that, I guess, like the afar, we got there already. We've gotten there, but it's time now to get to the kochavim. So if you look in the text that we have, we're gonna finish it. It's 4 paragraphs, and you'll see it in front of you right now. And we are from the 4th to bottom paragraph. Uvechen la'afar. This is from Erez Moshe Doron. Oh, very important. I want to dedicate the shir for the refuah of Sarah Bas Chana. Uvechen la'afar mitachtav kvar yaradnu. Okay, we already reached. When it comes to the afar, that part, we've already reached that place. Whether it's as the general national feeling, being put in ovens, or hating each other, all those things, we've tasted the afar. You know what it's time for? It's time we rise to the stars. That's what it's time for. וכשם שהגענו אל הארץ הגשמית בה הלכו וטבעו אבותינו את עתיד זרעם, כך נגיע גם להיות ראויים להיקרא ישראל ולהכיר במעלתנו האמיתית. Just like we reached the physical land where our forefathers went and planted the seeds for our future, so too we will get to the place where we are ra'ui, we are worthy, we are suitable. It is right to call us Yisrael. And when we're called our own name, and we sit in our own chairs, and our feet are in our own shoes, what he's saying over here is that means we'll recognize what we're really made out of. It's amazing how and a certain level, as high and as special we think we are, we still have yet to reach the level of really recognizing the ma'ala of the Am. You have certain individuals like Rav Kook that were very, very plugged into this. But I don't know, we're not there yet on a national level where we get to know what we're really made out of. We're closer, but we're not there yet. So when you know who you can be, and you see that you're not, does that bother you? Does it meziz lecha? Does it pain you? So it should crack a hole in our hearts. Now, generally speaking, we try to avoid this place of sadness because Ivdu Hashem b'simcha. But there's a time in the year that's designated for you and I to allow the pain of not reaching our potential and actually mess with us. That's what the 9 days, that's what the 3 weeks, that's what the 9 days are all about. Third to bottom paragraph. Ve'al zeh anu bochim umitablim b'yemei bein hamitzarim. This, you want to know what we're crying over? What, we don't have the Beis Hamikdash? I wish that's why I cried. I wish I was crying because I don't have a Beis Hamikdash. I wish. But the way that we learned what it means to not have a Beis Hamikdash can enable me to connect to the tears. Because the way that I learned, that we learned right now, why there's no Beis Hamikdash, or the ramifications of not having a Beis Hamikdash, essentially means that I don't know who I am and I don't know what my real beauty is all about. I don't know what it's all about. ועל זה אנו בוכים ומתאבלים בימי בין המצרים על גדולתנו האמיתית, on our real greatness, על עם ישראל אחר, we're crying over a different עם ישראל, מתוקן ומטוהר יותר, a more fixed, a more purified nation, שיקום מבין הריסות הבכי והזוועה, an am that will arise from the destruction of tears and zva'ah and horrible things. Sorry. ויצדיק בקיומו את אלפי שנות הסבל והגלות, and in its existence will justify all the years of pain, all the years of exile. Meaning, did we come back here to Eretz Yisrael to fight like cats and dogs? Is that really what it is? Did you and I go through the pain of pogroms after pogrom, massacre after massacre, and all the pain, obviously, of the 6 million, and all the unspoken pain that Yehudei Artzot Arab and Africa went through for years, and all the things that were stolen from them when they left their places and came to Eretz Yisrael? Did we go through all of that for this? No, not at all. We went through all of that in order to be who we are. That's why we came. That's why we went through all of that. We went through all of that so that you and I can simply fit into our own clothes and be proud to wear them here. I think it takes a lot of mema'atin, it takes a lot of humility to raise your hand and admit, Hashem, I don't really remember anymore what I am. I don't remember that image that you're speaking about. I don't know if I remember that person. And Hashem, you can't blame me because you really tortured me for many years. So how could I come back here and become beautiful again if I don't remember what it is to be beautiful? So Hashem says, okay, let's start with you. Come, let's talk. Because at least you're open enough to admit that you don't know. That you don't know exactly what to do. That you don't know exactly how to be, what to believe in, what not to believe in, what shita to adopt, what not. With you, itcha yesh li esek. Itcha yesh li esek. You know, I've shared this a number of times that there's a statement that Reb Shlomo made in an interview once where he was asked this 50 years ago. He was asked, what do you think should be the initiative taken today by the Jewish people vis-a-vis God. So he said that every leader of every religious group, spiritual group, should all come to the Kotel together with love. Just the leaders. And they should look up and they should say, Ribbon Shleim, Anachnu lo yodim ma la'asot. Please make it much clearer. Whenever I think of that statement, I think that instantly, there would be such a revelation like you and I could have never dreamed of. Instantly. But as long as I say, I have it right and they have it wrong, what revelation am I enabling to take place in this world, at least in my life? That doesn't matzdik, that doesn't justify my being here. The Charedim are like this, and the Zioni Dati are like this. And the traditionals, they forgot about what it means to keep halacha, and Ichlal, the reform and conservative Koifrim, and that talk has gotten us, it's gotten us nowhere. But these are not new words. These are not new words. Forget about saying this to other people. It has to become part. It has to become part of the way that we do Hisbodedus. It has to become part of the way we talk to Hashem Yisbarach. Second, end of the second line of the third to bottom paragraph. Shenachzor v'niyeh re'uyim lekitreinu hamekori, hakadosh. We should be worthy of our original crown, our holy crown. Shalzeh b'Megillat Echad. This is really the height of the pain while we're reading Eich on Tisha B'Av. Anu shoalim u'mevakshim al nefesh ameinu chadesh yameinu kekedem. This is what we're asking about from our people, on the soul of our people. Ribbon Shleim, chadesh yameinu kekedem. Here we get a little bit more of an explanation into these words. Chadesh yameinu kekedem. Like what days? Renew our days like they used to be. Like which days? Like the days that I could identify beauty. Like the day that I was me. That I was really me. That I knew what it meant to be me. Renew my days. Like the days where I knew what it meant to be me. So in the last two paragraphs here, he focuses us on what the Avelut, what the mourning of this time is really all about. Now usually, generally speaking, when you say the word mourning, you feel like it's usher to do things. Like that's what mourning is. It's usher. You're not allowed to do a lot of things. But the pnimius of Avelus doesn't mean that. It means it's a hizdamnut. It means there's an opportunity for something. Yemei Evel elu enam imken od ma'asa shel tsar miyutar v'nosaf al kol tzarotenu. These days are not just another burden of pain, in addition to all the other tsaros that we have. That's not what this tkufa is. Zoi tkufa shel hitbonenut mezukechet u'memukedet. It is a time of refined and focused introspection. B'shoresh hatzibot lechol metzukotenu. To discover the root of all the crisis, each and every crisis that you and I are going in. I have been experiencing. Zoi histaklut belev libo shel hashever. Yeah, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt when you take a look at the root of brokenness, the root of pain. Al menat latzet mimeno chadashim umeodedim. But the purpose is not to discover the root so that you could say, I found the root. I could see the root of pain. The purpose of it is so that you could say, I found the root of pain so that I now know how to come out of it so much more powerful and so much more uplifted, because at least now I know what route not to take. So is it safe to say that by now, we can say, at least the chevra that are here can say, that the route of thinking bad about another group of Jews is not the route to take? Can we just acknowledge that? Let's start with that. That's just not that won't lead us anywhere. In order to really have that internalized, we must taste the pain of what that's done to us in the past. Now, of course, the media here, I mean, I can only speak about it here because this is where I live, but the media here it's other than a few very holy and special individuals like Sivan and Yedidia and a few others that are a friend of ours, Ofer Chadad, other than these chaver that I know of, and Tzvi Cheskeli, there are a few, Baruch Hashem. Other than this chaver, there's a picture that's being painted here, especially these days, that is just not ain't getting us anywhere. Never got us anywhere, and it won't get us anywhere. My dream has always been to figure out a way to establish a new news station and a web page that's, usually it's interesting. The term news, which means something new to let you know about, 90% is always about something bad that you're told about. It's been like this for years. You don't have in the news today, you have in the news today, this neighbor was convicted for attempted homicide for the other neighbor, but you never have a situation in the news where they say, and today there's been a piyus, there's been a reunification of love between this neighbor and that neighbor. And that's how you'd start your day as you're sipping your coffee going off to work. What kind of world are we living in? But I find out in the morning about hatred, violent crimes. Rarely do I hear about anything good. Rarely. So the point is that hurts, that's the reality. Allow it to hurt in order to know which way not to go. As he ends off this second to bottom paragraph, כי המבין שורש צערו וסיבת יגונו עמוק ומר ככל שיהיה. One who understands and can מבין דבר מתוך דבר, he could really draw out lessons from the root of the pain and sorrow that one lives in, as deep and as bitter as the pain is, יתמלא גם תקווה, you also are filled with hope. That pain also fills you with hope. Why? בידו סיבה אחת בלבד, לכל ריבוי השכול והיגון, because at least I can put my finger on one thing. I can put my finger on one thing that I discovered to be something that's harmful and bad for me. And if I know that this is harmful and bad for me, at least in this thing I won't. For instance, like a person that, God forbid, suffers from horrible issues in his digestive system. Let's say, for instance, right? And has a whole balagan, he's seeing doctor after doctor, and finally, he has a doctor that explains to him, that somehow gives him a tour of his whole digestive system and the tour of his stomach and everything that's happening. And they could pinpoint and say, you see that? Yeah, only press here. And he presses on his stomach and he goes, ow! He says, well, let me tell you, by eating this or this way, or at this time, this causes the, ow! Oh, man, that hurts. Why do you have to show me that? So that it doesn't happen again. We don't look, we like in denial of the ows. Maybe. It's because we don't have leaders and rebbes that we have access to, at least, that could take our finger and say, here, point here. Man, that's what we have to dive in for. Shlach lanu manhig amiti. Send me a real leader that can hold my hand. We could discover the pain together. It'll hurt, but I'll also have tikva, I'll also have hope that comes from such what he called here, a focused and refined introspection. Hitbonenut mezukechet u'memumukedet. So he ends up here, the bottom paragraph, Mipnei chatainu galinu ma'aretzenu v'nitrachaknu ma'alad mateinu. That's what we say in Sholosh Regalim, that due to our sins we have been exiled from our land and have been distanced from where we belong. Ubetikun hachet, when person fixes this chet, behitna'er ha'adam mehara ve'ahevel she'istabech bo, when a person shakes himself off from the bad and the vanity that you got confused in. And when a person restores his faith into the living God and the living Torah that we have, everything will come back and be in its place. But what kind of a Torah are we talking about? A Torah that I learn that makes me feel holier when I exclude you from my picture because of your tumah. I don't think that's the Torah he's speaking about here. At least it's not the Torah that I can relate to. But a Torah that makes me more refined and pure. And thus that brings an immediate hashpah, influence on you. And makes space for you and me to together wonder what Hashem's dreams are for us. That's what it is. This is the Jewish way. Hamekorit, this is the original way. This has been the only thing we know of from ever. To return and to crown the holiness and the goodness. Until the following pasuk will exist within us and all of Am Yisrael, ubila amavis lanetzach, umacha Hashem Elokim dima me'al kol panim. The famous pasuk that comes from Yeshayahu and Navi, the prophet Isaiah, where he says that God will erase all tears off the face, the wrong type of tears off our faces forever and ever. Amen. Sorry. This is the blissful beauty of Yerushalayim. This is the blissful beauty of who we really are. And it's all an invitation, Chavra, just for a few minutes as we end share, an invitation to focus, an invitation to be vulnerable and see which things in my life I have enough guts to look at and show me that on a Klal Yisrael level, they didn't really help. They didn't really help. I'm not talking right now about things that in your own individual life, you're sure they didn't help, but more a sense of ways I thought about other Jews, projections, assumptions, all these things, they just don't help, especially us living here. As much as we say, I don't judge anyone that's not here, that place in us that thinks like, what are they still doing there, right? We always say no one's made aliyah from that type of thought. No one's made aliyah from that type of thinking. Oh, Ribono Shel Olam, I want to be beautiful again. I want us to be so beautiful again. This year when I say in Eicha HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when we say in Eicha Chadash Yameinu Kekedem, restore our days like they used to be, like they used to be, they used to be. What does that mean, like they used to be? How the only time I can think of like they used to be, even though it doesn't add up according to the timeline of Tehillim, but because Shlomo HaMelech's time of reigning as king is like the closest we can get to this place of Kekedem, When it says the time of Shlomo HaMelech with the first Beis HaMikdash, that time was so shalem. It was shalom, it was shalem, it was Shlomo, it was his name, right? Today, in order to make people feel better, we say so many bad things about other people. It's crazy. We're able to wipe people off the maps and all their goodness just in order to be sensitive to someone's pain. And it's amazing how we think that that's something holy, and really, what are we doing then? Is that bringing more shalom to the world? So Chadash Yameinu Kekedem, you have to just think about this word and daven. The interpretation of this word Kekedem should become clearer. But all those that say to God, it's another 9 days, it's another Tisha B'Av coming up, and we're clueless, but the only thing we do know is that this is not how it's supposed to be. this is not yet beautiful. Those are the people that have to raise up their hands and come together. All the lonely people of the world come together and admit, I don't know, but I want. I want to know. I want to be beautiful. I want others to feel that when I look at them, I see beauty. And I want the same for myself. Oh yeah 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 la 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 oh 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 yeah 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 la 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 ah yeah yeah la 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 ah yeah yeah ay 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 Hashivenu Shemelecha Ben Nashuva Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem Ay Hashivenu Hashem Eilecha, Hashem Eilecha, Ben Anshuva, Chadesh Yameinu, Kekedem. Chodesh Tov. Chodesh of love, Chodesh of Ma'atin, B'simcha.